Hey everyone, welcome back. My name's Diana. This is my channel Bookish Di, and today I'm just starting the vlog style reviews of any HarperCollins books that I read between now at the beginning of January to whenever the end of the strike is. So to start off, the first book that I have is The Curse of Taliana by Lois McMaster-Bujold. This is the first book published chronologically in her World of the Five Gods. This is the same world that the Penric and Desdemona series take place, and I have been meaning to read this for most of 2022, and I finally read it in December. So it follows Kazriel, who is a former soldier who had been captured and enslaved as a galley rower and has just been freed and is trying to put his life back together. He enters the service of the Dowager Provençara, where he had been stationed as a young man, and he's appointed the secretary / tutor of the Provençara's granddaughter, Iselle, who is the princess of Talion. And during that time, he is trying to, teach her as well as deal with the dark forces, with the curse that has been plaguing the royal household, and trying to find a way to free Iselle and her brother from the curse, free the land from the curse, as well as ensure that Talion endures. So this is a fantasy take on the unification of Spain with Ferdinand and Isabel. So Iselle is the Isabella character, and the Prince of Ibarra, whose name I'm completely blanking on, is the Ferdinand character. So this was very interesting. I liked this one. It's not the same level as the Penric and Desdemona ones for me, but I did enjoy it. I thought the world building was really interesting, and you can there is some early installment weirdness with this, how in terms of like magic and stuff, but overall I liked it. Kazriel is a very different character than Penric or Miles, who are the two Bujold leads that I'm most familiar with. He's very he's not like, he's in his 30s, but he's very kind of world weary. He's seen a lot, experienced a lot. I liked his relationship with Iselle. It's kind of like big brother, little sister, or like favorite uncle, favorite niece. There is an age gap romance here between Kaz and Iselle's lady-in-waiting, Beatrice. Beatrice is like 1920 when this takes place, so just be aware of it. I did like it once I kind of got over the age gap weirdness, but if that does weird you out, just be aware that that exists. You also have some fat phobia in this, which not great. Yeah, that was also a little off-putting. I did listen to this on audio. It was narrated by, oh God, I literally just said this. Narrated by Lloyd James, so it was a little weird for me to be listening to something written by Bujold that's not Grover Gardner. I think I prefer Grover Gardner. Honestly, like Lloyd James is a fine narrator. But anyway, I would say definitely pick this up if you're interested in Bujold's writing. Be aware that some things have not aged well. This is, I think, about 20 years old now. It was also very interesting for me because I am somewhat familiar with the Ferdinand and Isabel story, mostly from the royal spinoff of the Dear America series. So I was like trying to match up my memories from that to this. But anyway, I did enjoy this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I love Bujold. I definitely want to pick up Paladin of Souls, which is the sequel, which follows Iselle's mother at some point this year. I really like Bujold. She's become one of my comfort writers. The second book that I read in December from Harper was Earth Eater, written by Dolores Reyes, translated by Julia Sanchez, and narrated by Frankie Corzo. This is a short Argentine novel, and it follows our unnamed narrator, who is this young woman who's growing up in one of the villas, one of the slums in Argentina. I think it's in Buenos Aires. And after her father beats her mother to death, she has this overwhelming urge to eat the earth where she lives, and she discovers this power where if she eats the earth, she can find out what happened to someone. So she can find out if they're dead, where they are, if they're missing, where they might be located. And this book starts off with her as this young girl, and it grows into her as this young woman, and her relationship with her brother, her relationship with this police officer who reaches out for her for help with finding his missing cousin. And it's a very short look and critique of the violence against women in Argentina. And it's interesting in that, like I said, we don't ever find out the narrator's name. She's just kind of this person describing what's going on to us. Her relationships are very interesting. I thought that the commentary was well done. Something that Julia Sanchez notes in her translator's note is that the Spanish that this book was written in is a very local Spanish. It's Argentine Spanish is its own, Argentine Spanish is very different from Mexican Spanish. For example, as someone who grew up with Mexican Spanish, and the dialect that Reyes wrote in is very specific to the slums. And so she had to kind of pick and choose how she wanted to kind of convey that. So for example, at one point, there's been a murder at a club that the narrator's at, and her police boyfriend is one of the people who responds to it. And in the English translation is, "What are you doing with the scum?" But in the Spanish translation is, he calls them esos negros, which is basically dark skin. It has this very racial connotation that you don't really get in English. So it was very interesting kind of think about how the translation works with something so hyper local. I don't know if I'd ever pick up the Spanish book. One of my libraries has access to it. So overall, it was an interesting read. I think I gave it 3.5, 3.75 out of 5. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it, but it was interesting. Hello! So this is the February update to this reading vlog-esque review thing for HarperCollins titles. So I read 2 HarperCollins books in February and DNF'd another one, so I'm going to quickly talk about them. I'm not going to do it in chronological order just because the DNF was part of a series. Anyway, so first there's Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. This follows Xinyin, who is the daughter of the Moon Goddess, and it follows her journey from leaving the Moon Palace and arriving in the Celestial Kingdom to becoming the companion to the Celestial Prince, and her rise through the army as the first archer. So I initially tried to read this last year, and I wasn't really in the mood for it because this is a book that reads, especially in the beginning, very YA. And by that I mean it's training montages, it's trying to figure out your place in the world. It's a very coming of age book, and it wasn't what I had expected it to be. And so it wasn't a book for me at that particular time. But this ended up being the group book for Bethany at Beautifully Bookish Bethany's Patreon. And so I decided to pick it up and give it another chance now that I had some different expectations going in. And I think it worked better. The first half is still not my favorite, or the first third is not my favorite. I can understand why it was included because it gives us the cast of characters. It helps set some of the stakes. But for me personally, I didn't really enjoy it. I much more preferred parts 2 and 3. So this is after our main character is no longer the companion of the prince. She's in the army. She's trying to find a way to earn the Crimson Lion talisman so that she can request that the Celestial Emperor free her mother. So in terms of the world building, I thought that it was very good. I thought that Tan's descriptions were really lush and really beautiful and really did a good job of setting the scene and giving us a view of how magical the Celestial Kingdom is. We also visit other parts. So we visit the Eastern Sea, we visit the Golden Desert. We also briefly visit the Mortal Realm. So I really liked that. In terms of the character, so I thought there were times that our lead, Shin Yin, was a little flat, but I thought in terms of being very focused on her goal and being like, okay, this is what I need to do to achieve that goal, I did appreciate that. I was not a big fan of the love triangle in this book. I think that was part of the component that felt very YA. So you have her relationship with the prince as well as one of the generals and kind of the complications with that. I actually didn't really like the prince that much as a character. Like, he felt very naive and very sheltered, and he's the type of character that I don't really enjoy. I much more preferred her relationship, like her friendship with one of her friends in the army. So I do plan on picking up book 2. I did enjoy this book, but it wasn't a favorite. I ended up giving like a 3.5. Like, there were things I liked, there were things I didn't like. But yeah, I'm glad I finally read this. I love the cover. I think the cover is one of the prettiest covers from last year. So I definitely plan on nominating the author for a Hugo Award for Pro Artist. But yeah, I'm glad I picked this up. I would say if you're looking for something that has similar vibes to like 2000 or like early 2010s YA, but like a little bit more mature, has really good world building, like really lush world building and magic, pick this up. Then I read The Girl from Everywhere and DNF'd The Ship Beyond Time, both by Heidi Hellig. So these were on my Reader on Haul TBR for this year. So I finally picked these up because I needed an audiobook. So the audiobooks are read by Kim My Guest. So she reads the first book, and then in the second book we have her narrating again along with James Fauhay, because he narrates the point of view of Kashmir, who is one of the love interests. So Ship Beyond Time, or The Girl from Everywhere, follows Nyx and the crew of the Temptation, including her captain, the father, and they have the ability to travel through time and space using maps. They can only go to a place once unless it's their native timeline, and then they can, go back and forth. And her father is trying to find a map that will allow him to save Nyx's mother. I don't think he was actually married to her. But anyway, the love of his life, he's trying to find a way to rescue or to save her from death. And it's this obsession, and Nyx has conflicted feelings about it because, she would, one, like to meet her mother, but two, she doesn't know if that happens, what happens to her. And so they end up getting a lead, and it takes them to Honolulu in 1884. So right before the end of the Hawaiian monarchy, and they get hired to steal the treasury. And during that time, she meets a young man, Blake Hart, who is a white American who lives on the island, who loves Hawaii and is trying to stop what his father and the other Americans are doing. So the good. I thought that the idea, like the world building idea in terms of like how time travel works, is really interesting. This is a way, like one of the things with this is like myths and legend give things weight and allow things to happen. So like mystical creatures or mystical places can appear if someone believes in them enough. I thought I liked the crew that we get. So we have Nyx, we have Kashmir. I'm completely blanking on the other two crew members' names, but I liked their dynamics and just the way that their relationships felt lived in. Like you could tell that they had been together as a crew for a while. So I really liked that. I thought that Nyx was an interesting character. However, and this is the reason why I gave this 3 stars instead of like 3.75 or like a higher rating, is this book, for all that it's concerned with the end of the Hawaiian monarchy and like the factors that led to it, and talks about like how terrible it is that Hawaii became first territorial possession, then like a colony, then a state. and kind of lost its heritage. We get no Native Hawaiian perspectives in this book. Like, the only Native Hawaiians that we get are like people in a tavern and street urchins. And especially given that the only character who is like presented as someone who's like willing to die and willing to fight for like Hawaii's independence is this white boy, it felt so awkward and felt like really glaring that for all this concern, we're not getting the perspective from the people that it impacted the most. So Heidi Helig was born in Hawaii, but she's not Native Hawaiian. She's Asian American. So I don't know what was going on there. And it just, especially towards the end, felt really egregious. And like, the more I sat with it, the more it bothered me. And I do vaguely remember seeing some discussions around this when this book initially came out, but yeah, I really didn't like that. And it felt really weird and kind of gross, and it really undermined a lot of what I liked about this book, particularly with the world building, and kind of going into the family dynamics. So I gave this a 3-star. I'm unhauling this book, and the stuff that annoyed me about this book is what caused me to DNF this book most of the way through. So this book picks up shortly after The Girl from Everywhere, and Nyx can now navigate, and her father has given up is said to give up his opium habit, trying to not be obsessed with trying to rescue Nyx's mother anymore. However, she gets told by another navigator who is based on a real life person, David Crowhurst, that there's a way to change time. And Nyx is also told by her father that it was prophesied that she would lose her love at sea, and she becomes obsessed, and she can like feel the obsession of trying to save Kashmir and prevent him from dying. And during that time, and because of that, they go to this mystical island, and now I'm completely, anyway, this mystical island called Caris, which is a myth, like a French myth. It's about an island off, I want to say, the coast of Brittany. Anyway, so I had been, enjoying this book. I thought the discussions about fate versus choice were really interesting. There were some things that were like a little overwrought, like particularly her her obsessions with saving Kashmir. But I thought that it was fine. Like, it was definitely I was enjoying it more than I did Girl from Everywhere. And then we got to the twist. So throughout this book, we had been meeting this man Crowhurst, and he's like trying to prove that he can change time, and Nyx and Blake and Kashmir are trying to figure out like what he means by that. And she discovers that he brought James Cook from the 1700s to this island so that he would miss the voyage that earned him his captaincy, which then would allow him to sail the world and discover places like Hawaii and Australia. Anyway, and I'm just like, so once again, the plot point is, do we do this thing? Do we let the course of history happen that impacts Pacific Islanders when, again, there is no Pacific Islander characters, and and I could see that I don't know what's gonna happen because I didn't finish the damn book. But like Blake Hurt was again going to be the one who's like, no, we can't let this happen, and Nyx would be conflicted, but then she's like, no, we have to let history take its course. And I didn't want to deal with that again, and it was just like there was an opportunity to maybe have it be, instead of her mother, like something going on with her father, and like how that changes time, or like something else. And like there was stuff there where it could have been interesting, but the stuff with James Cook just felt so shoehorned in and just kind of was like tying in to the previous setting. And I couldn't do it. I DNF'd it. I didn't care. Because I could feel it being like, oh, this, like, I'm gonna be mad about it for the last quarter of the book. So it just makes me mad because like there was interesting shit in here, but it is what it is. So I'm gonna unhaul these, free up some space on my bookshelf. So yeah, disappointing because honestly the reason I had picked this up is my sister had read it and really loved it, and I'm just like, I wish I could have liked it, but there are too many issues. So anyway, so those are my February Harper books. Fingers crossed that I don't have to do this for March, that they will actually get a contract before then and I can release this, but who knows? Anyway, have a good day, and I might be updating this video next month. Bye.